That's right, community. It's time for AppSec Now, a DevCentral podcast focused on the latest threats and happenings in the application security world. We'll be featuring custom curated content from F5's Security Incident Response Team and relevant data from F5 Labs to keep you up to date on the absolute latest in AppSec now.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of AppSec Now. I cannot do that radio voice. I got the 3 M's with me, Merlin, Malcolm, and Megazone. How's everybody doing?
Good. Yeah.
Doing good. Interesting articles this week. So we're going to talk about EC2 SSRF, Oracle breach. We got some Verizon data, some Beavertail, some Golang Ghost malware, and Apache Parquet, not Butter requests. But let's start off with Megazone's finally back from VulnCon. How'd that go?
Oh, it was great. It was a good show.
Yeah.
I was there all last week down in Raleigh, North Carolina. Lots of good content. If you weren't there, you missed a good show. It's probably my favorite event of the year. And I am biased because I am one of the organizers, but it's still a really good time.
It's your baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
Has it been growing pretty well?
Yeah. We capped our facility this year. We had 450-ish in-person attendees and
Nice.
a couple hundred more virtual attendees. It's a hybrid event, so the Discord, Zoom,
Which is perfect.
In fact, we're moving next year. We hit our capacity on this facility we were in the past 2 years, and next year it's going to be in Scottsdale, Arizona, at a larger facility.
Okay.
So
Same time.
It's going to be new, and I think we're capped for that facility is like double. It's like 800 or something for that facility. I don't think we're going to hit it next year, but it gives us a little room. But it's actually there for 2 years. Like it's April both coming years. I have the dates here. It's April. Where the hell we go? 13th to 16th next year, and then April 5th to 8th in 2027. So we've got the facility locked in for the next 2 years.
Cool.
I heard some really high praise of VulnCon from some folks. I think the Grey Noise podcast was like really heavily emphatically appreciative. They were like, "This is the best thing."
Yeah, it's a lot of really hands-on, the contests for people who are doing the work. It's not a lot of we deliberately screen. It's not vendor pitches, right? It's not. It's not. Here's why our product is better than everybody else's, or here's a big problem and why you should buy our solution. It's not like that. Like some other shows I've been to.
That's good.
A lot of really good content. A lot of people you'd know from throughout the industry, and people ex-F5ers and people who were there. I think it's great. It's we had a few other people there too. I think some of the people attended virtually from F5 who weren't there in person. So it was really good. All the content, it is a hybrid event and things get recorded. And so over the next, it's like 2 to 4 weeks, something like that. I think the content will start showing up on YouTube under the CV.org, YouTube, and I think First.org, who are the two co-sponsor, co-heads of the event, First and CVE. On the last year, the content showed up on both YouTube channels. I think same thing planned for this year. So it'll go out there, and the idea is to produce content that helps lift everyone up on in the community. So
awesome.
Good stuff there.
Yeah, hopefully I can get some budget so I can sneak in and attend, if not virtually.
Sounds like a good one for next year. Definitely.
Yeah. Right. Is planning. So let's start off with the F5 Labs report, Merlin, that you kind of spearheaded about campaign targets, Amazon EC2 instance metadata via SSRF.
Yeah, happy to. My name's in the spotlight, right? But like Malcolm worked on it with me, for instance.
We won't talk about him.
Yeah. Kind of interesting, right? We're kind of my pet theory is that someone found like gold on a website when they tried an SSRF and hit the EC2 instance metadata, and they were like, "Great, let's do this everywhere." Right? If I find this just a few more times on the internet, it's worth my time. But maybe you should explain what it is, right? SSRF is where you trick a server into talking to another server for your benefit. So in this case, hey, let's go talk to EC2 instance metadata. Maybe there's some AWS credentials there. And then, the the actual metadata service itself is it's like accessible internal to the EC2 instance. And so when folks haven't set this up properly, and you'd be forgiven for not setting it up properly, right? Yeah, you can get into trouble. And as we were talking about before the show, like SSRF it's a bottomless a well of expertise you need to have a hope of defending that properly. So super common. What do you think, Malcolm?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I want to ask you what sort of data would I be able to fetch from this URL if I was able to leverage this?
I mean, the kinds of things that have worked for me in the past were, straight up credentials, like, oh yeah, maybe credentials that can get everything out of your S3 bucket and maybe your backups, right? Or if you super haven't least privileged that thing, you can spin up more AWS instances and crypto mine, right? I mean,
yeah, that's exactly right. So it becomes an IAM problem, and we all know how well that works a lot of places. So yeah, that becomes a very complex situation. So the proper way to set this up would be, I don't know. I mean, is the SSRF? I'm asking a lot of kind of framing questions here, just because I want to make sure that everybody understands this, right? So the SSRF, that would be a bug in my web app, right? Essentially, right. So,
and those are going to happen. You should plan
Yeah.
on those happening. Like
Absolutely.
at really mature places, you find one of those every 3 months.
Yeah, and so the solution in this case would be to, we were talking about this earlier, to move to version 2 of
Yep.
the metadata server, right? And so how does that stop this from working?
Oh, there you have a shared secret between you and the metadata service, and you have to provide as a header. And I don't think I've seen an SSRF that let you specify headers, unless it's like
Yeah.
straight up command injection, like you can run curl or something, right?
Right.
In which, if that's happening, you have other problems, right?
Indeed.
Yeah. Version 1 allows token. It's just optional. Version 2 does officially require it. Now, I know version 2 is required on new instances created, but that's also if I'm manually creating instances. Whereas if I'm going back and looking at all the configs I've done for AWS, this is where we're running into it, is not lazy IT operations. I mean,
No,
this
not at
stuff's
all.
just going to be
Not 'cause they're
embedded
lazy.
in so many cloud
Oh.
templates.
Yeah, I don't want to say lazy, but in some ways, like when I was coming up as a sysadmin, like laziness was considered a virtue. That was one of the sort of this like do something right and do it once.
Yeah.
I guess I have a
Because,
DevOps
like, and do it
soapbox moment here.
repeatably, right?
Mhm.
So if I've already set up a bunch of Terraform or whatever else, just spin up environments, and I did that 5 years ago, and it's working great as far as I know, who's going to look at it, right?
Yeah.
So that's essentially the risk profile, I would say. Yeah.
What you said made me think that there's something from the DevOps parlance is like pets and cattle. I don't know if that's super security parlance, but like, is your server something that is a pet and you keep it alive for 20 years? And the uptime on that thing is forever, and you don't have any infrastructure as code to like tear it down and spin it up, or is it cattle? Like we don't like it, we need to scale some more. We'll just create some. We got too many. We'll destroy them. Because anything with low uptime has a really high chance, or anything that's treated as cattle has a really high chance of not being. Well, it's more that if you do your DevOps where you express everything as code and configuration, you're much more likely to just say across the board everything uses v2 of instance metadata. Whereas if someone set up a machine one time and no one wants to touch it because it's working, right? That's the camp that's going to be in trouble.
And then we also called out smaller, I wouldn't say shadow IT, but shadow IT. So you get smaller groups that aren't part of a large process. You only need a small door to get in. So even if you had this flawless GitOps over here, marketing partnered with some intern that's learning how to code, and just accepted defaults a long time ago, or pulled it off the internet.
Yeah, or someone really professionally responsible got fed up with getting no traction whatsoever, and they stood it up themselves, and who knew they didn't have all the security awareness they needed.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And we've seen that happen with even like lab boxes or tests. Oh, I'm just spinning something up because I need to test something, and it was exposed to the internet. Oops, and what didn't go through IT practices because it was just a lab box. It's just a test box.
He let the person who has never done this lower their hand.
What is it? What is it? ABC 123 exclamation point @ pound sign, something like that. Would that be a good password to try? I don't know.
All right.
All right. But anyways, is there anything to wrap up on the EC2 discussion?
I think just, if you're curious, read the post. It got picked up by Bleeping Computer and a bunch of other places.
It's a great article. There's a lot of really good data in it. Really impressed with you guys. Malcolm, you're like the ghost author on that one.
We're a collaborative team.
It's a team effort, right?
Yeah. Here's the spoiler. I wouldn't have even written it up. It was Malcolm that pointed out, hey, no, this is newsworthy.
Really?
Look into this. Yeah. I was. Yeah.
Okay, well, then
Anyway.
I support Malcolm. We're going to move on to the Oracle finally confirming a cloud hack. And we were talking about it, like which hack is actually the one they're talking about. They're still being pretty cagey on the details, but this is stuff that's been reported for quite a while. And they didn't really contact customers until the hacker posted content to prove that, like, no, here's your customer data. So the FBI's in on it, CrowdStrike's investigating it, but what are we looking at right now? Just because it is...
What did they think was going to happen exactly? It's
Yeah,
like, let's lie hard and it'll go okay. Like
they're taking lessons from our current administration.
Ew.
Edgy.
No, this is this regular Oracle Cloud, or is this one of the other private, like, vertical clouds that they kind of partition off or tenant out?
I'm interested that there's a distinction. I mean,
I don't know. But I know this. So this was reported. The article that we're talking about is off Security Week. But if you go just search for Oracle on Bleeping Computer, this has been going back to stuff I've been reading. We're at March 21st. We're talking 5 days ago. They're still denying certain things, but there was the Oracle Health breach, which is theoretically separate from this breach, or they're just trying to compartmentalize the news. I don't know.
Hard to say. Go ahead, MZ.
More than one breach. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. The problem is it gets hard to trust an organization. Yeah, this is why I argue at F5 that we have to be open and honest, full disclosure on things, because when you start from the point of view of let's just try to sweep some of the rug or hide it or deny it or whatever, and then more and more details come out, if you later on you go, oh yeah, okay, so we acknowledge this part, but that part's wrong, but can you trust that statement?
Mm-hmm.
You've already eroded your trust. Like you said, that they basically were saying, there was no breach, it's not a breach, nothing happened. And then the researchers are like, well, here's the data. Okay, well, that breach, sure, that thing right there, something that's like, oh, sure, that data got breached, but nothing else. And then as more details come out, it's like, oh, that too, yeah, of course, that too. And it's...
Yeah, in fact, they
at one point when you just kind of stop trusting anything they say. It's like when they say, "Oh no, now we're serious." Sure, this is the scope, and this part is wrong. Well, you've already said the things that you now are acknowledging are wrong. So how do we know this isn't just moving along farther down the line?
Yeah. So Bleeping Computer actually put up the email that Oracle had sent out on the 7th to everybody, and they had flat out said Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, the OCI, did not experience a security breach. And so then you're kind of sitting there going, well, then which part of this? And that's where they use the term the obsolete servers got impacted. But then if an obsolete server got impacted, how are their customer records being exposed by rows 87168? 6 million data records.
And if it's an obsolete server, why is it still online?
Right. Yes.
I think the most generous interpretation here is they had no idea.
No, they had no idea.
Yeah.
Which in itself is not a good sign.
No, it's not.
Yeah, this could very well be the situation where they looked at it internally. They had an internal team look at it and said, "No, we don't see a breach," because they weren't looking at the obsolete servers. Like whatever they're, which again is a situational awareness thing, and that's a problem. Like if you're not aware you've been breached and you have been breached, that's a problem. And that's companies. I'm going to drag something else into this to make it messier. Is that companies need to look at things like the Cyber Resilience Act out of the EU, which is coming into effect. Because an excuse of, we weren't aware doesn't cut it. Like you can still be heavily fined for not reporting these kind of breaches under the CRA. And so there are reasons why situational awareness of your own servers becomes financially important.
Especially since the threat actor had stated that these are stolen SSL and LDAP passwords. So like you have obsolete servers in your login infrastructure is weird. So
Yeah,
It's not
I
a
don't
good
know.
look.
I mean, my faith in Oracle was broken a long time ago after the Sun acquisition, and then with the whole Java lawsuiting, and let's just start laundry listing this. So this kind of, for me, unfortunately, lines up with how they've behaved over the last decade. So
yeah. I think just as a final point, I don't want to beat up too. I mean, I do kind of want to beat up on Oracle a little bit. I will just a little bit, but
Yeah, we
I'm
want to beat
actually,
up on the lying, right?
Anybody in IT who doesn't want to
but
beat up on Oracle a little bit.
the
Sure.
yeah, especially the thing that always got me was like the patches that were like 1,000 different products, and it was just very unmanageable. But anyways, I think the thing that I draw out of this is everybody's going to get hacked. You have to have a response plan set up ahead of time. You need to be transparent and reliable in the information that you're giving. And if you say, we need some time to investigate this, that's what you say. And then you go investigate it. And you get outside help if you need to. That's table stakes these days.
Mhm.
And I, for one, don't want to go back to the old days where companies would deny stuff that happened or deny that vulnerabilities were occurring in their software or anything like that, because that does not make anybody more secure.
yeah,
Okay, I'm off my soapbox now. We can move on.
you're fine. No, definitely,
Totally agree.
we want to
Totally
see more
agree.
accountability. We want to see a little bit more truth telling, and Oracle does have the ability to restore some credibility if they choose to.
Right.
Yeah.
Moving on, we got some Verizon app vulnerabilities exposing a ton of call records in an iOS application. Evan Conley reported it in February. Anybody have any comments on that one? At this point, this is just kind of more of the same. There's no flaw exploited. This has just been patched.
A little bit like the AT&T massive breach from.
I think this
however long ago
is
it was, or-
less. This is less impacting. I think there was less data pulled.
I just meant like the impact isn't just one-sided. It's not. It's because you're making calls to people, so kind of the graph effect of how many people are impacted is more than just the people making and receiving calls.
Yeah.
Because this just seems like the problem was the server was failing to authenticate. Like you were making a request for user A when you weren't user A, and it could go into the app, forging the request, and the server was like, "Oh, sure, I'll give you your data," because it wasn't confirming you were the right person.
And I mean, these apps are not necessarily written by your top tier people. These are some pretty lowly looking apps. I have seen unencrypted data on the back end of these for another carrier before, where it was too difficult for them to figure out, so they just allowed it to all go unencrypted. And we're sitting there going, "You are one of the top 4 carriers." This is,
but also,
this was a while ago.
Authorization bugs are the hardest bugs to catch and prevent, right? So this is, maybe not as hard as SSRF. But.
Yeah, just it's incoming call records, phone numbers, timestamps. So it's the metadata that we've already given everybody else anyway. It's just more.
But there is some compromise there, because if you're under investigation, or someone wants to is corporate espionage, whatever, and I can query. How many times have we seen people's phone records used to leverage for something else? Or find I think it was Merlin just said, it also can be the web, right? I get your data and I see who you were talking to, so then I query their data, and I establish a contact web if I'm looking for who's involved in this organization, or who, like, trying to put together a bigger picture. And that
it's data that when you mix it with other data becomes even more enriched and valuable. Yeah.
A simple example would be I figure out what the name of the CEO of the company or the CFO, and then I figure out the number of somebody who calls them regularly, spoof that number, and send them a text message saying, "Hey, have you done that money order to account XYZ?" Right? Like there's lots of different applications.
Are we going to say it's going to happen? It might.
This is the final project of every cybersecurity class at this point.
Or different levels of intelligence gathering. Like you can pivot from like a high level executive, and who are they talking to? Oh, they're talking to a bunch of executives at this small company. Is there an acquisition pending? Should I play with stocks? What's it like? Why would this company be talking to you? So there's other data that's useful there. It depends on what you're looking to use it for.
Absolutely. I wouldn't downplay this kind of thing. Like a
Don't
small
downplay it.
flaw can really get big fast, depending.
Yeah,
on...
I don't want us to become numb. I'm a little numb on these types of flaws at this point.
It's hard not to be sometimes in this industry.
Yeah. Next up, we got some North Korean hackers deploying beavertail malware via 11 malicious NPM packages. Now, I want to start this is very apropos because I saw a cute little thing on Imgur yesterday where this CS teacher is just beside herself. She's like, why do I bother? It was a very simple program, and she couldn't figure out why this student was doing all this weird stuff in code. And then she realized, like, just to even display letters, he was importing an NPM package to display each character. Then she was like, he was trying to write a basic, is this number true? And he imported an NPM package which was an AI module to determine if the number was true. She's like, this should be the most basic program you've ever written in your life. And you imported the entire thing over like 15 NPM packages.
He was vibe coding.
And that's what makes this scary.
Yeah.
Is because it's in NPM packages and we're becoming so benign to just blindly accepting NPM packages.
The cautionary note there, as you might think, is everyone who doesn't know what they're doing that's at risk.
Yeah,
it's all of us.
That's the issue. It's becoming legion, right?
How many times have we had to say this, seen this in the industry, like people incorporating NPM packages in live running production code? Like, I'm going to real time pull a package down off the internet and run it in my production server.
Yep.
Like, not even I'm going to download it ahead of time and go over the code. Like, even people download it ahead of time, how many developers don't actually review all the code in the NPM package? They include it, they compile it in, or
Damn it.
What you're doing. It works.
I challenge you to be a software engineer who reviews your dependencies.
Or at least pull the NPM package to your own private repository. So at least there's some sort of delta that's been validated. So have some sort of automated program validating the package off. I don't know. I mean, there was that one guy last year, really good developer, but he was just tired of having to deal with stuff. He pulled his NPM package and broke like 1,200 websites immediately because they're doing just dynamic live polling.
Yeah, it was like left shift or something. That was a couple years ago. Yeah, the things like that.
I gotta say that yes, it sounds scary to be live updating NPM packages in production, right? It's almost more impactful to live update them in your dev system because you probably have even more privilege there than you do in prod. If you go and actually look at like all the you can change code in dev. Can you change code in prod? Like, not really, probably, right? You're not gonna. How do you supply chain compromise?
No.
But there's no pivoting potential, right? You can change the API or the server that you've hacked, but not the supply chain ecosystem of the company, right?
Yeah, very true.
To tie a couple of the things that, like we talked, AI got mentioned, NPM was mentioned. I can't remember the name of it. There's a cute name given to this, but AI coding, like vibe coding and things.
Slop squatting.
Yes, it's creating fictitious package names, and now you have malicious actors going out and creating those packages with those names, like because the hallucinations tend to be repeatable. It's always hallucinating the same names. So now you have people deliberately creating malicious packages using names AI has hallucinated, so that if you have AI code for you, it will just look for and use these malicious packages.
Awesome.
Hey, it's not dumb if it works.
Right.
No, it's brilliant. It's awesome. I read about that this past week when I was at Volcon, and I'm like, damn, I wish I thought of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just like
awesome. It did end up just it's a rat. It's a Golang. What was it?
No,
it was JavaScript. But it still was just a rat using those NPM packages. So it's more of the same on what they're executing. It's just don't be blind with your NPM packages, please, people.
No,
appreciate your code.
And I'm gonna, if you're a developer doing commercial work and you have not looked at the Cyber Resilience Act in the EU, you want to, because you are liable if you do this and you include malicious NPM code in your product. You are legally liable, not the open source project.
Yeah. So now we're going to move on to
Yeah, we
the
are.
Golang Ghost malware deployed. And this is a click fix tactic. So displaying a little dialogue, hoping somebody doesn't read it, off to the races you go. Yeah, so it's one of those, oh, your computer has an error. Here, go use this driver to fix your computer. Click.
Which
Yeah.
I loved. I love the is it? I think it's called a pretext in the social engineering world for this one, which is we want to interview you for a job. Go to our special web sharing meeting
Yep.
platform. Oh, you need to update the drivers for your camera. Here you go. That's beautiful, man. Like as opposed to the standard like your Windows system needs updating. Click
Yeah.
here, whatever, or your antivirus is
Yeah.
out of date. Like nobody accepts legitimate Windows updates half the time. So like why would you do that, right?
Yeah, this
But
one
if
is
I'm
true.
on this one, I'm excited to try to get a job. I got an interview. I've been applying for tons of jobs and no one's calling me back. I
I
am
will say though that
yeah.
if you're throwing down curl to update a camera driver and you notice a URL that's like api.updatecall.live/NVIDIA, this one's designed for the masses. This is I would have not done a curl to that domain.
I think we should all get tested to see if we'd fall for it, because I bet they get one of us. It might be me.
I think
Honestly.
I almost have a perfect record.
Because in this,
Uh-huh.
the gods are going to smite you. But
I know,
how many times people have gotten really used to this, right? Like, because you got Google Meet, you've got Zoom, you've got Teams, you've got WebEx and stuff, all these different things, and you talk to different people. I've been prompted a number of times talking to customers, like, oh, we have to use, we're not allowed to use Zoom in our environment. We have to use this package, right? And you go to connect to the video conference to help somebody, and it's like, you must first download this camera driver. You must first download this. And the world we've gotten, I think, in a way, numbed to some of this stuff just because of the world we're in now and how many different things are out there and are always prompting you to install an update for this, that, the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you give somebody a pretext for their mind that, oh, I need to get into this call. It's my interview. If I want this job, I have to get in. Oh, sure. I'll update this, right?
I wonder if they gave it to them, the candidates, like 2 minutes before the interview start, just to create some urgency.
The thing that I love about this one is I think Mac users would fall for this more because curl is so prevalent for installing packages for Linux subsystems. The Windows one is better, where they ask you to open a command prompt and then run a VB script.
That's a little weird. Yeah, if you're a Windows,
that just bypassed 80% of the Windows users right there. Like, oh, I'm just not going to get that interview.
Well, but I don't necessarily mean to throw aspersions here, but the target audience here was not necessarily highly security conscious people. It was people who worked in the cryptocurrency world. And it doesn't even say whether or not they're looking at, technical people within the cryptocurrency world. They're targeting people who have access to cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were just casting aspersions on people who work in cryptocurrency.
I was not.
Security.
I'm just saying.
So they have to be in cryptocurrency, but not savvy enough to recognize that opening a command prompt and running a Visual Basic script is kind of sketchy.
Yes.
Okay. That's a target group of people right there.
I mean, I don't know
it's
much
a
about
high
my
value
car.
target group of people, though.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna move on from that.
Yeah.
It's pretty standard stuff. It's just always kind of funny.
But just really cool, and
it was really cool. Critical flaw in Apache Parquet. We got some remote code execution. It has a CVE 30065 with a CVS score of 10. Although that's up for debate depending on who you talk to, the company or the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I looked at this one a lot, so I could talk for
please
for a while.
Check it out.
I guess I got really interested in this because the underpinnings of the vulnerability are in Avro, and I've worked with Avro, and I just didn't believe it because Avro, whenever I looked at the code, I was just like, the quality here is great, right? When you're pen testing, you look at code, if you're going to find stuff as soon as you look at it, right? And looking at Avro, I wouldn't have guessed. And also because it's so heavy. Oh, should we explain what it is? It's Avro is a way of doing, like, it's kind of like protobufs, like really, bit packing the bejesus out of your data. So it takes very little space. But then where it does really well is it does schema, strict schema and schema validation, right? It's if you really want to be sure that what you're reading and be able to forwards and backwards migrate between versions, it's just it's brilliant, right? And then if you're using it, it's really rigid. It doesn't let you do anything with your data types that you wouldn't expect. So I was very surprised that you might be able to arbitrarily create classes. I went and looked at the code, and actually, sure enough, under the hood, there was a way to specify what class you want to create, which folks who are really into Java deserialization bugs immediately perk up their ears and go, well, that's...
I mean, who isn't? Come on. This has been patched, though, at least. So there is a patch available, 1.15.1. Yeah.
There's some quirks to the patch, though.
Really?
Yeah. The patch introduces the idea of allow listing packages, which is great, right? But then what happens if you upgrade and then it says, oh, you're trying to do something that's not allowed, right? So if you're migrating and you are deserializing classes that aren't on the built-in allow list, then you have an environment variable to go tweak. And one of the settings that environment variable allows you to do is star, which just undoes everything, right? Undoes all of the security.
Star's my favorite.
And you can just imagine you're a software engineer going, well, actually, I was even surprised that this class wasn't one I was allowed to do. Let me add it. Let me go talk to the person who lets me change environment variables to add that. Let's redeploy to production again and see what the next one that breaks. If you're going to do 30 of those, 50 of those, you might be tempted to put star in. Boom, game over, right?
Yeah.
And the other little detail here is there was a lot of really solid discussion on the GitHub pull request from the developers. It's like, it really confidence inspiring, like they're very rigorous. But the one detail that didn't get any discussion at all is what's on that allow list. And like Java IO is on the allow list, Java Net is on the allow list. I think it's not as... So, like CVSS 10, sure. If somehow you can get to the point where you have a malicious, Parquet file in the environment, and you can make them. And
it has not been. We haven't seen any exploits in the wild on that yet.
I'm going to say you won't. That's my money. The EPSS score is like sub 1%, and I think that's appropriate, right? Yeah. Just because if it could theoretically happen, it would be terrible, doesn't mean it's easy to make that happen.
Yeah, there are actually some quick side. There were some presentations at VolCon about that, where it was like CVSS and how like the Venn diagram of what that is, and then like EPSS and like how there's actually a very small. CVSS is not a great predictor for actual exploit.
Right. It's, you got to look at what they're basing the data on. But as it happens, the default EPSS score, I think that's it's pretty close.
Maybe I should just say why I said yikes. I mean, just hearing java.io and java.net, that's all I need to create a reverse shell, was the immediate thought that I had that popped into my head. But
there's caveats. It's got to be a static method or a constructor, and there's not so many static methods and constructors that immediately have behaviors. But I don't know the full details, right? But
yeah, so I wanted to kind of walk that back just a little bit. Like, all of these things are big, long chains of dependencies. Some are shorter than others, but you have maybe some room to operate on this one if you really want to.
Yeah, Bishop Fox documented if you have Java.net, you can do DNS resolution callbacks, and you can enumerate the class path to see what's on it, which is, it's not super impactful, I got to say. Not top of, I'm on AppSec team. I'm not saying, oh my God, go fix this right now. Except it's possibly, depending on how you're consuming Parquet, it's probably not a big deal to bump it in the version. You're not going to break things.
Cool. Yeah, give it a thought. Probably patch it.
All right. So pretty impressive list of stuff, guys. We're gonna wrap it up so we don't bother anybody else anymore. If you liked what you hear, click like, subscribe, do all the algorithm stuff for us. The links for some of this will be in the details below, and we will see you next week. Thanks everybody for coming in.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers. Have a good day.
Bye,
folks.
Thanks for checking out AppSec Now, a DevCentral podcast. We hope you enjoyed it, and if so, please consider clicking like, subscribing, or even writing a review. Available on all major podcast platforms as well as YouTube.